So tonight, starting from my left, we have Georges Gilles-Quinet. You are the Belgian Deputy Prime Minister. You are also in charge of mobility in the Belgian government, and you are wearing two hats tonight, the Belgian national government, but also the Belgian presidency of the Council of the EU. So you might be grilled on both aspects of this. Maroš, Šefčovič, you've already been introduced, just like Bertrand Piccard. Next to Bertrand, we have Chloé Mikolajczak. Thank you, Chloé. Thank you for joining with us. You're going to be the troublemaker tonight. Oh, yes, you will. Because we have a panel made of private sector, institutional representatives, Bertrand, his foundation, and you are our green climate energy activist. So hopefully we're going to have quite a few interesting exchanges. To your left, Chloé, we have Niels Fuglsang. So you are representing the European Parliament. Today you are an MEP from Denmark, Green Party. You're also the deputy chair of the ITRE committee, if I'm not mistaken. And also you were the rapporteur for the report on energy efficiency in 2022, if I'm not mistaken. And I think you have a microphone when you want to. And then last but not least, certainly not, we have the Chief Executive Officer of Syensqo, Ilham Kadri. I will maybe just pick on some of the things that our speakers have said now, so for the other panelists, please bear with me, but I would like to react to the heat of the moment. Also with you, Bertrand, your manifesto actually is made up of several parts, several recommendations. One of them struck me. Is when you say we need a change of narrative, change words. Okay, basically what you're saying, it's a communication issue, right? So first of all, I've been in Brussels for 24 years in EU circles. I've been hearing this for 24 years. In the past, it used to be about Euroscepticism. Oh, we need to get closer to the citizen, we need to change our narrative. Second thing, it seems a little bit simple, doesn't it? I mean, hire spin doctors, make our communication people work, and hey presto, we can tick that box, problem solved. Surely you will disagree with me.
You're speaking of spin doctor. You know, I'm a psychiatrist. And what I have always learned is that you have to speak the language of the people you want to convince. And the one we have to convince today are the industry, the economy, the right wing of the politic, the financial world. And if you tell them about reducing their activities, reducing everything, you create more resistance than adhesion. So you need to speak in the language of the key decision makers, which is job creation, profit, and economic development. And can you do that by protecting the environment? For a long time, it was not possible. For a long time, it was either one or the other. Today, thanks to the technological developments, you can do the two. Today, you can go into a qualitative economy more than a quantitative economy. We live today in a quantitative economy. It's always more and more and more, at a cheaper price to beat the competition, with lower salaries, so you have more inequalities. So the economy doesn't work. And in addition to that, you are polluting and destroying the environment. So go just with the need of the decision makers, go into qualitative economy. Qualitative economy means that instead of selling quantity, you sell efficiency. If you sell efficiency, you make more profit, more margin, you can pay higher salaries, you reduce the inequalities, and you stop to waste and stop to pollute. So you have this unique opportunity today of protecting the environment and make our world more competitive with a better economic development.
So it's not just a communication issue.
So you see, it's not a question of spin doctor. It's a question of just understanding the psychology of the people that you need to convince. Otherwise, it won't work. Otherwise, you create conflict instead of creating federation.
But maybe then another question, because I've seen so many of those manifestos over the last years and over the last weeks. And, you know, what would you say to people who look at you and say, damn, and another manifesto? Why is yours so different?
Well, I don't know if the other manifestos get as much interesting and clever people as we have here.
Okay, so this is a spin doctor's answer.
So it's a question of bringing this manifesto to the right people. If you bring manifestos to people who have absolutely no power to decide anything, it's useless. If you bring these manifestos to MEPs, to the ecological representatives, to the industry, to national governments, to European Commission, to the representative of the values of Belgium, I think you can have a big impact and you can make a big difference.
Thank you, Bertrand. Maroš Šefčovič, I was listening, of course, to your speech here, and one thing that struck me, and forgive me for being blunt, but I keep hearing that the Green Deal is still a priority, more than ever for the Commission. I think yesterday in Politico, when President von der Leyen announced her bid for a second mandate, they issued an article. The headline was for VDL 2.0, more military might, less climate talk. One thing. Second thing, probably more relevant, on the 6th of February, it was a Wednesday, the weekly college meeting, and it was in the wake of the farmers' demonstrations across Europe. Correct me if I'm wrong again, but the college seemed to dilute the EU Green Deal, funnily enough, in the farming sector. This was about fallow land and pesticides. Is it still a priority for the Commission then?
I think the answer is very easy, and it's yes. And of course, we all have to read the papers to be properly informed, but I think that we also have to read them and look at them in a perspective. Just look at, I would say, not only last 5 years, because with Bertrand we got to know each other even in my previous mandate when I was responsible for the energy union, and clearly the decarbonization and then the agenda, clean transition, the modernization of the economy, tackling the climate change was a priority for the European Union, I would say, since more than 2 decades. We are the continent which reduced the greenhouse gas emission more than anyone else. And I think that if you look at, I would say, the measures which have been taken on the basis of the fact that we are at the end of the cycle, and you might have, let's say, lack of agreement for this or that. You should put it into the perspective that I would say the first communication this year was about how we are going to reduce the greenhouse gas emission by 90% in 2040. So, I mean, if you want to have a long-term vision, here it is. 2050 climate neutrality, 2040 minus 90%, 2030 minus 55%. And of course, all that discussion, the talks we have, and I have to thank the Deputy Prime Minister for extremely able navigation of the presidency in this very special time of the year, because they do not waste a single hour and single day for not having the trilogue discussions to complete many files, also under the Green Deals, which are still open, and they are pushing the green competitiveness on the top priority. And I know that these discussions we have right now would also culminate in the strategic discussion of the heads of states and government in April, where they want to work on the strategic agenda for the next political cycle. And I'm sure that the modernization, decarbonization, greening of our policies, competitiveness and skills would be among the top priorities.
Thank you. I would have more questions, but we'll try and keep balanced time between all the panelists. And if you don't mind, maybe I'll just move on to you, and then we're just going to go around here. Georges Gilles-Quinet, first of all, merci d'être avec nous ce soir. You're wearing 2 hats. I'm not too sure what about, well, maybe let's start with your EU presidency hat. Remember the prospect of the EU elections and surveys saying everything's moving to the right. Do you think that the Council, i.e. the Member States put together, do you think the Belgian presidency can bring them on board for the EU Green Deal, or will they do what we seem to be seeing already for the moment, more and more political parties trying to steer away from the Green Deal to get more voters?
It doesn't depend only from Belgium, but we will do our best with conviction to be the honest broker, the efficient broker that a presidency has to be in the European context. And we need several things. We need inspiring leaders, and we have met one today. It's not the first time. We need hope. We need to show it's possible for people, because people need hope in time of war, in time of climate warming, with the lot of question it brings. We need partners, and I see partners. I hope I see, but I think I see partners here, and we have, as a presidency, to put people together: administration, economic actors, young people, old people, to explain what's possible, and we have to find solution and good example to inspire people. We will need also financement, but I listened to Mr. Commissioner saying we are importing every year for 600 billion fossil fuels. If we become autonomous at the energy level, it's 600 billion that we can invest in our own economy, in our own prosperity in Europe. And we need also a narrative, a story to tell to people. And with a goal, a livable Earth, a livable planet for our children and grandchildren, is the reason why I'm a politician today. A decent life for every European. There is a lot to do. Peace in the world and respect for every people. And I'm afraid we will do our best as Belgian presidency. It's an honor for us. We are one of the founding countries of Europe. We love Europe, I can say, as country. But I'm a bit afraid. We began the European legislature with the Green Deal, with a lot of hope, with also financing or project for energy, for train in Belgium, thanks therefore. And we finished the legislature with a commission who said, let's invest in weapon industry, who say greening agriculture, it will be for later, it's not so urgent today. I think it's what we have to do, to put on the agenda, and we have the opportunity that we are finishing the legislature and we are preparing the next one, and I want to put green transition, accelerating the transition on the agenda.
You are confident you can
always
you can bring all the member states on board on this, but you're not too happy with the end of the mandate of the Commission. Can I ask you maybe to remove your European hat and put your national hat, because at the end of December 2023, so not that long ago, the Belgian government negotiated a deal with ENGIE, which is this nuclear energy company, which, again, correct me if I'm wrong, it was to shut down 5 nuclear reactors, but actually to prolong the life of 2 others. So basically here I have a green minister saying nuclear energy is the way forward. Is that it?
Not at all. But we need it for 10 years more because we have also a responsibility as we are in government security of supply, and you cannot change a system in 3 or 4 years. But yes, we decided to close 5 nuclear plants in Belgium.
And prolonged two
to
others.
prolong 2, the youngest one, the only one with safety, enough safety for people. But we decided also to triple the volume of energy produced by windmills in Belgium, and we are one of the most efficient country in offshore windmills. We decided to reinvest or train companies and with a goal to double the volume of goods transport by train, to double the number of people transport every day by train. Yes, we decided to have a deal with ENGIE for 10 more years. I hope
10 more years of nuclear energy in Belgium,
and
coming from a green minister.
What's the most important is the job we can create, the CO2 emission we can avoid with the investment we did in transport, in mobility, and in energy for the
Thank you, Deputy Prime Minister.
Last years.
Thank you. We're going to move on to the private sector now, because for the moment, Ilham, you've been sitting quietly. We've discussed institutional issues and science. Maybe just in 30 seconds, because you're the CEO of Syensqo, and I'm not sure everybody in the room knows exactly what is Syensqo. Is it possible in 30 seconds?
30 seconds. Syensqo is a startup of 13,000 people, 8 billion euro company. Was born in December 11, so we are just 2 months old. It's a spin-off of Solvay. Solvay, I had the honor to lead this company for the past 5 years. So it's a specialty company. Science is our name, at the service of clean mobility. We'll talk about aviation later on. 1 out of 2 EV cars in the world contain our products. 85% of the vehicles flying in the air contain our products. We are in your electrical devices, in your handbag, maybe your pockets. I'll stop here.
Yeah, that was 38 seconds, but it's okay.
Well, you asked me to market my company. I'm not going to shy.
Let me pick on one word, rather one name in what you've just said, the name Solvay. Chemical industry, probably not the best champion of climate and ecology over the last century or so. Syensqo, is it Solvay with a little green mask on?
I led, Solvay, which was split in 2 for the past 5 years, and let me give you some facts. Solvay as a company in the past 5 years, we cut our greenhouse gas emissions double what Paris required from us, 4% every year, while Paris required 2% since 2019. Solvay and now Syensqo is one of the few companies in the world who has an internal carbon pricing. Mr. Commissioner talked about the level playing field. We implemented the carbon pricing in our company. 50 euro a ton in March 2019 globally at Solvay, when it was 25 euro a ton in Europe, globally in China, in the US. And 2021, before the Russian war in Ukraine, we put it at 100 when it was 50. And we did it, by the way, while we became more profitable. We doubled our return. It was 8% in 2018. We delivered last year 15.5%. So we are sustainable and profitable. So no, green is not a mask, you call it, or makeup.
No, I was
we
asking
remove
whether
every evening.
Syensqo is a green mask for Solvay.
Yeah, both are sustainable companies. Solvay has shown sustainability. It's committed actually to carbon neutrality by 2050. Syensqo, the company I have honor now to lead and continue the journey with, is committed to neutrality by 2040. So even 10 years ahead of our sister company, at the service of clean mobility. We're in batteries, we're in green hydrogen. We'll talk about it later with Bertrand Piccard. We lightweight your objects, right? Be it a car, a plane, or the bike. I know Chloé was biking, coming here under the rain, so we do this as well. So I think we are a science company. And what does science do is to bring solutions to the unmet needs, to the most challenging issues humanity and our kids are going to face, which is climate change, is a reality. But science and the industry I represent, including chemistry, is not just part of the problem, we are part of the solution.
So, okay, science is there to solve all the issues, but, oh, forgive me, you're still a private company, right?
Yeah.
What is the aim of every single private company in the whole world? It's to make money. That's the aim, otherwise,
yeah,
you do an NGO or whatever. So why would you support climate and, and I think your private companies, they're there to make money. I was reading the other day in The Guardian that the 4 top oil companies in the world have recorded record profits in fossil fuels since the war started in Ukraine. Why would you change? You make money doing dirty energy. So what is the incentive for the private sector? Well,
each company has its own value and purpose in a life. And ours, I mean, again, Solvay has been around for 160 years, right? 160. There are just few companies in the world who can last 160 and have a baby called Syensqo today. You don't thrive, and remember, modernize to thrive, you don't thrive and last if you don't have a purpose. And our purpose is to impact humanity, is actually to explore new ways of doing business. So yes, I'm not running a charity company. Mm-hmm. It's for profits. But we believe that it has to be done while being, economically, environmental friendly, while becoming durable as well. So it's not in opposition. We can be sustainable and profitable. And we've shown it as a hard-to-abate company in the past 5 years. Double our return while being more sustainable. But we need the right policies. We cannot do it alone. We need the authorities and the policy makers to support us. We'll talk about Europe probably. We have a competitiveness challenge. Yesterday you heard it. We had the Antwerpen Declaration. We were 70 CEOs. We met President Ursula von der Leyen, the Premier, the crew, and we asked specifically that we are here in Europe, in the heart of Europe, in Brussels, to really protect our industry. I was so happy to hear Mr. Commissioner talk about the farmers. It's great what you say. We need the same for the industry. Because the people like us who are good in obeying and doing even more in regulatory, we need that regulatory recognition. Okay. We need to have that green premium because at the end of the day, who is going to pay for it? We need a level playing field because if we do a good job in Europe, we want also our product to be used in Europe and not compete unfairly against imports, which are higher carbon footprints than the products we are making in this region.
Thank you, Ilham. So this is not about greenwashing at all, and we're going to move to Niels Fuglsang. Thank you also for being with us tonight. As I was saying, you were the rapporteur on energy efficiency, and you have a background also in energy and I would say green. Now, I would ask you to answer my question not as a representative of the Parliament, a very personal answer. We see all those surveys saying that the next Parliament is going to look a little bit on the right side. And we see the program and the calls from quite a lot of those parties. Basically, let's call a spade, saying climate change, it's not really worth it, it's not a priority. They may have a blocking minority here and there. Are you optimistic that the Parliament in future will support defense, the protection of climate?
All right, great. There's a sound system that works. Thank you very much for the invitation. And I am worried, I am concerned about the European elections coming up, the 6th to the 9th of June. We've seen in surveys, as you mentioned, if you look at Germany, if you look at France, if you look at the Netherlands, if you look at Italy, we've seen what I would call the extreme right gaining ground, and all those parties have political programs where they say that enough is enough. The European Union should stop making more climate policies, should stop making more environmental and green policies, because it's actually hurting industry, it's hurting farmers, it's hurting ordinary people. Now, I disagree very much with that, and I think we've heard both representatives from business and in this new manifesto that Bertrand is launching, and from the European Commission and Belgian government, that there are still strong voices saying, no, we will not stop making ambitious climate policies. We are going to continue because, in fact, if we are to live up to the Paris Agreement, if we are to stop also the loss of biodiversity, if we are to restore nature, then the job is certainly not done, and we need to continue. So I am concerned because what you describe what we're looking into might be a serious obstacle towards this transition. But my hope is that the big parties, that will hopefully still be big parties after the election, that is the Socialists and Democrats that I represent, that is the big Conservative Party, the EPP, the Renew Party, the Liberal Party, and the Green Party. Those are the four biggest parties today. That they will still be responsible and they will not be scared by this turn to the right, because I don't think that the extreme right will have a majority in the European Parliament. I don't think we will not come that far. So if the responsible parties, they say, all right, you may be bigger now than you were before the election, but we will still continue to make a green transition, then we will still have a majority. But what we've seen, and what scares me a little bit, is that some of the political parties in the European Parliament, and here I can speak openly, I'm talking especially about the EPP, the big Conservative Party. They have become very scared of the right-wing turn, and they have said, look, we're going to vote against the nature restoration law. We're going to vote against the pesticide law. We're going to say, actually, we don't want any more climate legislation. And if that happens, if the responsible parties, the big parties, get scared of the right-wing turn, then we are in big trouble.
And would you say, just to move away from this doom and gloom, that in one way, I would call it Bertrand's Manifesto, especially the part about bringing together everybody around the table so that there is something for everybody, is something that can be done within the parliament? Because at this stage, you're just saying, there's going to be us, mainstream parties, and them on the other side, the bad guys, more or less. Does such a manifesto has a role to play in actually bringing everybody around the table?
You know, I think the manifesto is an interesting one, and I think Bertrand is onto something which is right. When I listen to Bertrand and I read the manifesto, I pay attention to especially 2 points. The narrative that you are mentioning, Bertrand, it's important. It might sound like a spin doctor advice, but still, I would say it's very important, because actually the biggest obstacle to the green transition today is not a scientific one. We have much of the science that we need. The biggest obstacle is the opposition we meet in certain parts of the society. Now we look at the farmers. They're very much against what's happening. Some of them are very much against what's happening. So that's the biggest obstacle. That's people who feel that they're being left out. And we need to create a narrative where we actually come together. The second thing I pay attention to in Bertrand's speech intervention just a minute ago is that you talk, Bertrand, about inequality, which is rising. I think much of the opposition that we're seeing is about increasing inequality that we're seeing in all West European societies, including my own country, Denmark. We've seen it for the last 30 years that inequality is rising. If we are to succeed in this green transition, we have to stop this trend. We have to make sure that both those at the top and those at the center are getting a piece of the cake, and that they can see that this also benefits them. So the narrative and the fight against inequality, I think that is very important, what you say, Bertrand.
Thank you, Niels. Chloé, you've been very patient. Thank you. Are you, climate activists, part of the problem? Isn't there some sort of tiredness of people who've been hearing for 20 years those alarm calls, saying, "Ooh, wake-up call, this is our last chance," and then years go by, and not much seems to be changing. So are we still listening to climate activists? And this is also more for you, of course, are some of the actions of those activists kind of not really succeeding in achieving their goal?
Are we the problem? No, we're not the problem. We know who the problems are. We know what the problems are. And that's the thing. Well, I mean, it's actually very easy, and I keep hearing about solutions, but we know what the solutions are. We've known the solutions for years. Scientists have been very clear about what the solutions are. The IPCC has been screaming for years. It's not new. And we know what the problems are. The problems are an economy that is based on fossil fuels, notably when it comes to climate. It's an overuse of pesticides when it comes to biodiversity. It's rising inequalities that makes it very difficult for people to project and embrace this narrative. The problems are there. And so when I hear, what worries me a little bit is when I hear that we need everyone around the table. No, we don't. We don't need certain industries that have been lying and that have been delaying action for years. I'm sorry, but that's not, I don't want them to still be able to profit and make money out of their industries. And I don't think they should be called around the table. We don't do that with the tobacco industry anymore. When we develop public health policies, we don't invite the tobacco industry. We're talking about the future of, literally the future of humanity. Do we want the biggest polluters around the table? I don't think so. I mean, if you ask me what the kind of world I want, I don't necessarily want the biggest polluters, the ones that are still making, as you were mentioning, 200 billion in profits by selling fossil fuels. So I think that's one of the big issues, is that we certainly need a lot of people around the table, but I really don't think we need everyone. And about climate activists being the problem, well, I think if you think about that most climate activists are actually young people that are terrified for the future, no, I don't think we're the problem. I think we're doing everything we can because we're terrified. I think every survey shows that the vast majority of young people is eco-anxious. And I was hearing about, I received a message 2 days ago about a 15-year-old girl who's currently in the hospital because she tried to kill herself because she doesn't believe she has a future because of the climate crisis. So I think when we look at the actions that we see now, whether it's civil disobedience or not, it's literally the expression of frustration. And I just want to give the example that we've literally explored every possible avenues before reaching those types of actions. If you look at Belgium or France, these are countries that have been convicted for climate inaction. But they don't, I mean, not enough is done. So what do we do when you've literally explored their reaction? You've done the lobbying. I've been running in the Court of Parliament for the vote on nature restoration law, literally banging on every table, on every door, being like, can you listen to 3 seconds of why we need nature restoration law? I've been asking people in the Commission to be more ambitious and not to give in the pressure that is currently being put on the Green Deal. I've done all of this. I've been part of the court cases, I've done the lobbying, I've done the nice raising awareness on social media, being like, please, policymakers, listen to us. I've done that. So, you know, you get to a stage where you're like, well, you're not really being listened to, so what are you going to do? You're going to do the blocking, you're going to do the disturbing, you're going to do the preventing, because once again, we know who the problems and what the problems are. It's just a lack of political will and a lack of willingness to change.
Thank you, Chloé. Well, my role tonight is not to be overly nice to the panelists, so I will let other panelists to take this role, Maroš, Šefčovič, and Bertrand Piccard. What we just hear from Chloé is that, and also you, Ilham, you are part of the problem, and your manifesto is wrong, because this is not about bringing everybody around the table, and technology is not the solution. The floor is yours.
That's not exactly. Yeah,
I'm
she didn't say technology
Chloé,
is not part of the
summarizing.
solution.
I want a debate here.
Good job.
So who's speaking first?
The Ecologic Party in Switzerland made its worst result in the last federal elections last October. And there was an inquiry to know why have so many people who had voted for the Greens voted for someone else in the last election. 27% of them said we are fed up of the green activists who are gluing their hands on the road. And 25 other percent, so it makes more than 52%, have said we're fed up of the green activists supporting wokeism. This is the result. It means the Greens have lost voices because of this. So I think your question about asking if the green activists are part of the problem is relevant today. It was not relevant 10 or 20 years ago when nobody was aware of the problem. But today the people are aware of the problem, and although I fully agree with your goal, I completely disagree with the way to reach the goal. Because today we need to put at the table the biggest polluters and explain them why they will make more money if they become more efficient, if they become cleaner. They need to hear what Ilham Kadri has said. More profit because they have been more sustainable, because they brought solutions to the market in order to allow people to consume less polluting products. This is what we need. So it's easy to accuse the oil industry to make profit by polluting. But who is consuming this oil? It's us, because we don't use the solutions that help us to be more efficient and more modern by reducing the consumption, reducing the waste. 3/4 of the energy produced is wasted because of old technologies that are still in use today. People don't know that renewable energies have become cheaper than oil, gas, and coal in most of the countries of the world. And it's not only solar and wind, it's also geothermy, hydroelectricity, biomass, and all the ways to save this energy. So once you explain to the polluters that they can make more money if they get cleaner, thanks to the new solutions, you can obtain a result. You can obtain that they will be cleaner and more efficient. But if you attack them, exclude them from the table, all the people who need them are going to resist to climate action. And all the countries who rely on these fuels will fight against climate action. And all the people who are populist or sovereignist are going to fight against climate action also, and we end up in the situation that Niels was describing, where we might have more opponents to the climate action next time than we had before. This is a disaster.
Thank you, Bertrand. Not working. Thank you. I'll have to stop you short because I understand we're running really beyond schedule, and I would like everybody to intervene. So maybe next panelist, let's try and be concise. I would like the institutions to reply to the debate that has started between Bertrand and Chloé in whatever order. Maybe the Commission first.
Thank you.
Microphone.
I think it's working now. Yes. No. First time.
No, it's not working.
Hopefully, it's working better. Your was working very well because you got the biggest applause. So I should use this one. I should use definitely this one. No, I think what is very important is, of course, to look at the problem. But I think we all have to put ourselves how we should be the part of the solutions. And I think the people gathered in this beautiful tent are parts of the solution. And indeed, as Bertrand has said, we are living and we are very proud that we do in democracy. So we need to work on a public opinion which would support our policies, and it requires engagement, it requires interaction, it requires really the dialogue, and also kind of art of persuasion and convincing the people that they would support your policies and your steps, and this is what I think it's our common task. Despite of all the problems, and the world is full of them, that we have to keep the strategic goal. We have to be absolutely clear with our citizens that non-action is extremely dangerous. It's an existential threat for the mankind. At the same time, I think that, and I very much appreciate that Ilham made it so clear. I mean, Europe today is kind of, and I'm not exaggerating, beacon of hope if it comes to the climate policies. I just had my extensive discussions a week ago in United States of America. I participated in COP28, and I think we've been there together. And I believe that we would agree that without Europe, simply we wouldn't have a good outcome from the COP28, and I would say the global climate agenda would be much lower priority order than it is right now. So we are the pioneer, we are the really front runners, but to keep that position, we need also to demonstrate that the Green Deal, that the climate policies, the innovation, that industrial talent we have in Europe would also work for the companies, so that they can generate the revenues which we need, let's be honest, for sustaining of the social model in Europe. Without competitive, efficient, strong companies in Europe, we will not have free schools, free hospitals, social model as we have today. And I think that we have to clearly fight for it. So we need ambitious green policies, we need competitive industry, and of course we need to have a public support for that. But 1 minute I want to use also on the fact that by 2030 most probably will represent only 3% of the greenhouse gas emissions of the world. 3%. So what is happening with the remaining 97%? And therefore, we are again the absolute pioneer in how we are helping third countries with climate finance, with sharing the technologies, with talking to them through active climate diplomacy what needs to be done. But we need to have them on board as well. And this in particular, I want to appreciate what our young activists are doing, not only in participating in discussions like we have in Europe, but I met them in COP meetings in Dubai, and they've been one of the most active, transversal, multinational group which participate in the discussions there, and this is exactly what we need, to have support of young people in Europe, but also on all other continents in the world. Thank you.
Thank you. Maybe I will move on to you. I think we still have 5 minutes before moving on to the next part of the event, because I suspect, Mr. Gilles, your heart is torn between your current political mandate, official speech, and your green heart, so to speak.
Indeed, the difficulty, if you are a green minister in a government with 7 parties, is to combine your ideal, protect biodiversity, tackle the climate question, and to be able to compromise, to take the time needed to change, knowing that we don't have so much time. But the question, if you make the choice to go in a government, which is not an easy choice for a Green Party, what is important is to know that it's needed to change. You can be right, always right, but don't change anything. If you stay in the opposition, then we have to take the risk to try to change, knowing that it takes too much time, but also knowing that we have partners. If I listen to I never Syensqo, it's Solvay. It's always Solvay for
Solvay,
me, Mrs.
that's
Kadri. I'm sorry therefore, but it will come. If I listen to some actors of the industry who are ready to change, to help us to change, I'm optimistic. If I listen,
can I ask you a question, and that one requires a yes or no answer? We've had a bit of a debate and argument here with Chloé on one side and Bertrand and Maroš Šefčovič on the other. On which side do you side? Do you take everyone on table, or do you follow Chloé
We need
and
to
not
take
everybody?
everyone.
Okay, thank you.
We need to take everyone if we want to change it. It's needed
Thank you.
to change is our responsibility.
We need to move on. Ilham, you were first. Niels, you'll be next. Can I ask you not to be too long, because we still have to present the project and we are running late.
Absolutely, and I think we need everybody. I think listening to the key stakeholders like Chloé and others is the right thing to do, because they are our employees, they are our kids at home. But the answer, and I think Bertrand is the loud voice about it, is about hope. It's about, I'm a scientist and I believe in people's ingenuity to resolve the problem. That's how our company, by the way, has lived 160 years. And when you talk about clean mobility, Mr. Deputy Minister, the technologies, they do exist. We're in batteries. Half of the cost of an electrical car just a few years back was the battery, half of the cost. We made it 20%, and we are working on single digits just now, right? And we're working on generation 4 and 5. It's going to be more affordable. By the way, if you want to have more EVs on the road, you need more charging station. I cannot do it, right? You need more electricity to decarbonize our sites. So that's the call for action. And again, because I'm an industry business person, woman, it's a call for industry for the jobs, specifically in Europe. And I'm passionate about Europe. I'm like you, I love Europe. But Europe needs now to get an industrial deal as much as the Green Deal. Green doesn't mean nothing without industry. If not, we're going to build ruins, new on ruins. And I love so much Europe that you need to have an industry specifically for hard-to-abate industry I represent, because chemistry, and I call it the mother of all industries, is vital for the Green Deal.
Thank you, Ilham. I will ask the audience, first of all, to applaud.
Thank you.
If you agree with me, because we're running late, I would still like to give the floor to the last two panelists, Niels and Chloé, which will take another 5 minutes before the presentation of the project. Niels, you've been asking for the floor.
Thank you. I'll be very short. Chloé, I agree and disagree with you when it comes to bringing people around the table. You say we don't need everybody around the table. I agree with you that if we, the progressive parties, have a majority after the 9th of June in the new European Parliament, I am not going to make, and we should not make, compromises with the extreme right to let them dilute the green policies. We should make a majority without them, and I don't think we should take them to the table. Where I disagree with you is that we need to understand why people are voting for these parties. And here I would say that we need to take this rising inequality seriously. We need to make sure that they are also offered a future and an alternative to what they do, because otherwise they will work to be our opponents, and that's what we don't need. Thank you.
Thank you, Niels. So basically, the voter is always right. We know that, so we are all culprits. Chloé?
Okay, I'll try to do very quick. So I'll try to answer to everyone. Okay, sorry. I was at the farmers' protest. I went to the farmers' protest because I don't believe there's an opposition between environment and farmers, and what I'm hearing from the farmers, which has been spinned by some really good spin doctors from the Conservatives, is that the green measures are the problem, right? It's not. If you look at the Green Deal, all the agricultural measures, they weren't voted, they weren't implemented. There's nothing about agriculture in the vote on nature restoration law, for instance. The problem is the cap that was voted by Liberals and Conservatives way before. So if you go and you actually listen to the farmers that are protesting, they tell you something very interesting, like a lot of people. And I think that's where we need to be very aware when we talk about the far right, because the far right is no longer the only problem. Some of the Conservatives are right now. They all tell you the same thing. We're willing to transition, everybody, but two conditions. The first one is we need the biggest polluters to do it first. Why are you asking me to stop driving my car to take my kids to school or go to the pharmacy or go to work when the biggest polluters are still making, I'm sorry, I'm going to be a little bit vulgar, but shit ton of money, and they're not being properly taxed. So this goes back to the point that you made about the fact that we need to keep allowing these companies to make obscene profits in order to sustain social Europe. That's not true, because they're not even taxed on their incredible super profits that they've been making over the past few years. So that's the first condition that people are asking for. The second condition is that they're being supported financially. And I think Europe is doing way better than others, but if you look at the Social Climate Fund, which is sort of the pot of money that is supposed to help people transition, it's only 86 billion euros. 86 billion is nothing, especially when we consider that we're giving 400 billion a year in subsidies to the fossil fuel industry. So that's one point, and then I'll be very quick. I don't think there's an opposition, that strong opposition between what we're saying. For me, I think efficiency is definitely part of the solution. It would be extremely stupid to say otherwise. I just don't think it's the whole picture. And I think we also need lifestyle changes. And I'm not saying that. The IPCC is saying that, and science is saying that. And I think they work hand in hand. But I also think that we shouldn't be naive in believing that everybody really wants to change. And we need to be aware that some head of industries, some sectors do not want to change. When you look at when you look at the fossil fuel industry, what they're doing right now at the policy level is they're trying to literally squeeze in every extra year they can get for extra profit by essentially getting support to build gas pipelines, which they're promising will eventually transport hydrogen, which, anyway, technologically is not feasible right now. So,
Chloé.
yeah, I'll wrap it up. It's just, let's not be naive. Yes, let's build alliances, let's build synergies, let's move forward together for sure, and let's fight for the Green Deal, because it's literally the best thing we've got right now, also at the world level. But let's also not be naive about the intentions of some decision makers and some industries.
Thank you.